All right, welcome everyone to Activate Your Value, 3 Limiting Beliefs to Shift Right Now. And I'm Christine Clifton, your hostess with the mostest, and I'm really excited to talk with you tonight. I've been working with my coach, who's Janet, who's on the call recently, and she's kind of helped me fluff up my offerings and giving me some clarity. And I haven't taught in quite a while. And I just get so excited when I teach. So I'm back creating again, and I'm so happy that you've stepped in. I know your time is precious, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend it with me. So the format today is that I'm going to lecture, so to speak, but I will be prompting responses over in the chat. So if you feel so inclined to respond to my prompts, just do so over in the chat. That gives us a clean recording so that when we post it for others to see, they can not be interrupted with the flow of the material. So if you have questions as we go, you can put them in the chat and I'll answer them as we go. And if it's a better question for in person, then hold them till the end. I'm going to open up Q&A. So I'm going to lecture for about 20-ish minutes, maybe 25, and then stop the recording when I'm done, and then open it up for dialogue and questions if you have them at the end. So just to give you a little framework for how we're going to proceed. And those of you registered, I also promised to talk about my new Money BS Meter quiz, which I had a lot of fun putting together, and also my new money course. So I'll mention those at the end of the session as well, just to see, give you guys some options for resources if you'd like them. So the Activate Your Value. So in the chat, if you would, share with us, what about the course or the class announcement caught your eye? Was it certain words in the title? Was it certain words in the description, if you can remember? So just over there in the chat, just share share with the group what prompted you to step in. Okay, easy not to see our own value. Okay, yes, that can happen for sure. Thank you for that. The word value, great. Those of you who know me already know I'm a word nerd, so I am going to talk about that a little bit, the word value. So yes, when we look at Activate Your Value, part of the reason I chose this topic, oh, we had another comment here, the financial aspect, but struggling with value as well. Well, it can be connected. So we're gonna draw some of those connections today. So thanks everybody for participating. And what happens with people is that, gosh, one of the things I say is I work with people who've been to heck and back, HE double hockey sticks and back. And we sometimes get beaten down and downtrodden, and for whatever reason, we start getting down on ourselves as well. So that can be one cause of feeling of low value, is feeling like we've kind of been through the ringer. Sometimes it's messages from our family of origin. So think about the value perhaps that you felt for yourself, or the essence around value in your family of origin. We all got I call them implants because we were kids. We didn't have a choice of what came into our psyches, right? So we got implants of what value means in that family of origin. The other thing is that often we'll do, and it's not working. So we're kind of start asking ourselves, why isn't it working? Or what am I doing wrong? Am I doing something wrong? So it's really interesting to look within and say, you know, what a part of those might be playing on me or you in this instance. A couple more comments about limiting beliefs. So yes, the limiting beliefs can be a dangerous cascading way of thought. They sure can. And shifting the limiting beliefs. So I'm all about shifting. And here's the thing, just like I said about the family of origin, sometimes the limiting beliefs, we don't even know they're there. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move on. So, so let's talk about the word activate. Why did I use the word activate for this class? I like the word activate because it shows that your value's already here. So all we're doing is activating it again. So if you happen to be one of those folks who are feeling a little of that downtroddenness or heaviness, or maybe you feel lost or maybe unclear about something in life or work. The activation is kind of doing a little archaeological dig and finding it in there. It's there. We're going to activate it. We're going to kind of spark it. And that's what I like about the word activate. And the word activate means to enlarge or expand or increase. So who doesn't want that, right? To be more expansive and increase. Now, the word value, it's rooted in words like power in different languages, power, strong, to rule over, right? So when we think about our value, think about that. Do you feel powerful or empowered? Do you feel strong? Do you feel like you're, let's say, ruling over your life or ruling over your work? That's something to reflect on as well. The other thing about the word value is that it could be a verb or a noun. So when I was reflecting on that, to value something, we could say would be to price it or to hold it in high regard, like I value that thing. That's, again, a verb. But value can also be a noun. So it could be like your principles, like your core values, right? That's a value. It can be a principle, or it could be worth, just talking about worth as value. So I believe that words carry power, so it's always interesting to see what's in the mix of things and what drew you to class today. So hopefully that might have given you some extra insight as to maybe what sparked your interest with class today. So I'm going to start, there's no particular order necessarily with 3 limiting beliefs. In general, my body of work is in kind of 3 categories that aren't completely linear. The first one is about attuning your vibe or your vibration. Those of you who know me, I talk about like attracts like or law of attraction. So that's kind of in that space of vibe, but so is like your big why, or if you want to call it your purpose or your soul's calling. And then I also talk about amplifying your voice. And that, again, is expanding your voice, actually using it, amplifying it, making it louder, helping it spread further. And then the third piece is what you stepped into today, which is activating value. So it can be linear because I believe that our vibe can feed the voice, can feed then the worth or the value, but it doesn't always happen in that linear way. So the first limiting belief I'm going to talk about is that that calling question that I used in the content of the class said, are there relationships or situations where you might be feeling unimportant or unacknowledged or not acknowledged? And this is rooted in a belief system that can be a limiting belief that you're looking outside of yourself for completion. So you may not know that you're doing that, but the limiting belief is, I've got to go outside of myself in order to be complete. Why does that make sense? Because if I'm looking for acknowledgement and appreciation, then that's an expectation I'm having that I'm looking for, in a way, validation before I can say I have value. I need somebody else's acknowledgement or appreciation. So that first limiting belief is looking outside of yourself for completion. And one of the phrases that I use is, as long as you're looking outside of yourself to feel complete, you'll always feel lacking, because it's abdicating the fact that we're already whole and complete as an entity of the universe, as a human being. So that the core beneath that is the fact that we're already whole and complete. And so whatever the downtroddenness or the family of origin stories or traumas that can also be causes for low value, those can sometimes interrupt that confidence we might have in our full value and cause us to look elsewhere for that validation. And so what I see, especially people who are wired for service. So in the chat, if you feel like you're a person who's wired for service, meaning that like you can't help but serve others, so whether it's your business or whether it is your career or maybe even your volunteerism on the side, just say yes if you feel like you are a person who's naturally wired to serve. So in the chat, lots of yeses. And you can say no too. That's also a valid answer. You may not feel that way. So So with that calling to serve, we often begin serving others to the detriment of ourselves. And there's always that little joke about the airlines and putting your oxygen mask on first, when we talk about self-care. But what we're talking about here in terms of service is that this limiting belief that I just shared can cause us to believe that if we serve more or if we do more, then we'll be valued more. So again, that can be a driver that's connected to this limiting belief. If you serve more, then you'll be valued more. And sometimes what we'll do is work and work and work and work because we're trying to, prove something to our boss or try to make sure a client has the results that they're looking for when they hired us, whatever your scenario might be. And it becomes to the detriment of ourselves. The other thing that happens sometimes is that when you hear a call to service, a lot of times it's birthed from what I call a sacred wound. And it's said in a very loving way, but it could be a trauma or something that happened to you or something that didn't happen to you and should have happened to you. So sometimes our service comes from a place of we don't want others to go through what we went through, or we want others to avoid pitfalls of some kind. And the little pitfall in that is if you do serve from that place and you haven't yet given yourself that thing that you're serving others, there's that tiny little vibration of lack that you're putting out that you might not even be aware of. So one of the takeaways that I mentioned for class today is that you might find out why the law of attraction may not be fully working for you. And this could be one of the reasons, is that you're unconsciously vibrating at a place of lack. And it's a noble cause to serve others, and we're helping others. There's nothing wrong with it. I look at things as good, better, best. And in the best category, I want you serving from a very healthy place. And I'd like to serve from a place of overflow rather than the place of depletion. And so people who are wired for service often get caught in that depletion scenario where we're giving from where we don't even really have enough for ourselves, but we continue to serve and to give. So what's the fix for this limiting belief? It is about self-appreciation. One of the things, I'm a bit of a realist when I think about things they talk about in spiritual growth communities or personal growth communities, and they start talking about self-love. And I'm like, self-love, what is that? What is self-love? It's this intangible thing. And what I've learned for myself is that self-love is loving what is. Is there any way that I can look at where I am right now and just love where I am right now, accept where I am right now, accept who I am right now? To me, that is really the first step towards that self-love. It's not a massage, it's not a bubble bath. It's, do I like me? Right? What do I like about myself? And can I accept myself, wart and all, right? Warts and all, and say, look, I'm a flawed human. I'm not perfect. This is how I go through the world. And I can appreciate myself and who I am in this moment. Appreciation is another word that I love. I prefer to use appreciate rather than gratitude. Just as a side note, I like appreciation because it actually feels like, this is going to sound funny, but like I'm chewing something in my mouth. Like the word is very full, like appreciation, but it also has two meanings. To appreciate means to regard somebody, right? To appreciate someone, but it also means to grow in value. So again, my word nerdness is coming out a little bit there. So let's move on to the next limiting belief. You may have recalled then the question that I posed about whether or not you can express your worth at work or in life. Are you confidently expressing your worth at work or in life? And as I mentioned, when we talk about amplifying voice, that's in this category about amplifying your voice. And what I find when I talk with people of service especially is that they don't want to brag, right? They don't want to come across as icky or like pounding my chest and say, look at me, and putting a spotlight on themselves. And so they don't say anything, right? They don't say anything about themselves or their value. So if you can identify with any of that, like I don't want to feel icky, I don't want to pound my chest, I don't want the spotlight on me, say yes in the chat. And let's see if there's any yeses, and say no if that isn't true for you. Let's see what we've got over there. Yeah, a couple of yeses, 3 yeses. Yep. So the thing that happens is that we often can't find our voice until we're comfortable. And when we think about expressing our value, we start to maybe feel a little anxious about expressing our value. One attendee mentioned that they're introverted. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, there's introversion. And believe it or not, there are even people who are extroverted who aren't necessarily able to share or voice their value. So when we feel anxious, our physiology in our bodies, I love sharing this because it gives you a reason to let yourself off the hook when you can't find your voice about your value, is that it literally intercepts the brain's ability to grab and access your language library. So if you're high emotion, whether it's fear or anxiety, whether it's laughter, whether it's sadness, doesn't matter, high emotion, because that is activating your limbic brain, which is your caveman brain. And our neocortex brain is what houses the language. So all the energy is going to that limbic brain for the anxiety or the emotion. And, I can't find the words in the moment. So part of accessing your voice is to come from that place of comfort. I've never been one that subscribes to those sayings about life starts outside of your comfort zone, or you've got to get outside of your comfort zone. Like, we're going to grow, and growing is uncomfortable anyway. Like, we don't have to make ourselves grow. It's going to happen. The biggest thing is we've got to get out of our own way. That's usually what's happening. So not being able to express your worth is rooted in this limiting belief that you aren't recognizing the role you play in your service as the conduit. So what do I mean by that? If you're an accountant or a bookkeeper, there are a lot of accountants and bookkeepers out there, right? I call it the Sea of Sameness. We have this perception that there's a sea of sameness out there. So if you are own your own practice, in that category, or in my case, coach, consultant, mentor, teacher, speaker, author, Sea of Sameness. There's just a lot of us out there, and sometimes we're like, oh, we say the same things. And so sometimes we don't think that we're very different, so we're not going to be able to articulate the value. The thing that we aren't recognizing in those cases is that we are the unique conduit. So why would I work with Janet and not a different coach? Because Janet's Janet. Because Janet is about meditation and mindfulness. She's got a woo factor to her, and I've got a woo factor to me, right? So there was a match there for what I wanted to do. I could have gone to any coach, but I chose her. And so we have the opportunity to recognize that we are the conduit of that service that we're so wired for. We can't just leap over ourselves, because if we did, the person on the other side wouldn't be served. The service has to come through us in order to serve other people. So sometimes the best way to be able to comfortably express your value is to find a way to state facts instead of it feeling icky or salesy or pitchy, to instead find a way to state facts. When I work with business owners, I like them to start thinking of getting recommendations or testimonials from their clients. Sometimes it's just easier to use their words instead of yours. Like, let them sing your praises, and then it's not you, right? So that's one way. The other way to look at facts is to kind of look at your work. So if you're someone in a career, and you're in an interview and you landed a sale for $100,000 in your last job, to share that, well, in my last job, I landed a very large account, $100,000. It was the largest any team member landed that year. It's a fact. right? It's not like you have to hire me, because it doesn't come from that place of, say, pontification or posturing. It comes from this really grounded, comfortable knowing that it's a fact. So whether you're in your own practice or an entrepreneur, whether you are a career person interviewing or even trying to get a raise in your current company, or being acknowledged in your current company, or being seen, see if you can't make some lists of the facts that you can say about your work. I'm always the first one to finish my projects, early. That might be a fact that you would share with your boss at work. So own it. It's a way of owning it, and it isn't bragging. It's just factual and comfortable. And if you don't say anything, right, if you're afraid of being icky and salesy and you don't say anything, then you're not amplifying, you're not speaking it. And one of the powers of voice is that it is that amplification. It's literal amplification, because it's something inside of your thinking that is literally being amplified when you speak it. But there's other things that happen when you speak something. One is you're hearing yourself say it. And I don't know if anyone likes affirmations or mantras or things like that, but why do we have those? To say it out loud. You start hearing yourself say it, and it's a way to help you, convince you, or remind you to recognize what your value is. The other thing is that, in my opinion, the universe hears it. So if I'm vibrating at this place of confidence because I'm speaking from a comfort level, because I'm just speaking facts, then the universe, the amplification of that is going to be read by the universe much more clear. And the universe is like, okay, I got it. I know how to align this. Someone in the chat says affirmations are reminders to ourselves and the universe. Indeed, I agree. So your voice is powerful. And I always like to bring in the little physiology or brain science. So one tip for those of you, when you're getting ready to speak your value or have a conversation, take a deep belly breath. There's something called diaphragmatic breathing, and you can look it up on YouTube and learn how to do it. There's a lot of different breathing techniques. I happen to use the I don't even know what you call it. I'll breathe in on 3 counts, but out breath on 6, like hold the out breath. And when your out breath is longer than your in breath, it's literally stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system in your body and making you calmer. And if we can get that high anxiety down, that emotion down, then guess what? You're going to be able to access that language library. So diaphragmatic breathing is amazing, and nobody knows you're doing it because you're just breathing. You don't have to hold a nostril or anything like that. Just do some, learn how to breathe from the belly, not the chest. That's also the key, but also that your out breath is longer than the in breath. All right, let's move into the third limiting belief. So the question was, do you sometimes feel frustrated? Something like that. I forget how I said it, but sometimes feel frustrated that you can't get ahead financially. Can't get ahead financially. And now there's a lot of limiting beliefs with money. And that's where my money quiz and my money course are going to come in. So if those at all interest you, stay on the call so I can tell you about that. But feeling like we can't get ahead financially, the biggest root cause of or limiting belief that I see there is that we perceive work as the source of our supply of money. So I want you guys just to think a moment. Have you ever received money not from working? Think about that a moment and type in the chat if you've ever received money that didn't come directly from you working for it, your paycheck or a client. Okay, someone said no. Thank you so much for your honesty. I appreciate that. Someone said yes, out of the blue. I love the out of the blues. Yes. Another yes. Inheritance. That's one way. Yes. As a little girl, my grandma always sent us like $5 or $10 in my birthday card. right? I don't know if you've ever gotten a birthday card with money in it. Tax refund count? That's a good question. Tax refund. Listen, I like saying receiving any money, right, is exciting. Technically, maybe it isn't. In the category, maybe it is in the category of coming from work because you're getting back what you overpaid. But you know what? Hey, tax refund, woohoo! We always celebrate when we have a little extra money. So think about those. Maybe you found a nickel on the street, or a penny on the street, or a quarter. So those are other ways. So if you've had those experiences, then there's your proof. There's your social proof that money does not come from working. Work is not your supply. And when we start looking at work as our supply, and whether I find this more in entrepreneurship, entrepreneurs burden their businesses by expecting them to provide for them. It's almost a bit like a codependent relationship. And again, on the surface, it seems natural. Well, of course, that's where my money comes from. But when we put that pressure on the business, it becomes a really constricted energy, like, constricted. I want us coming from expansive energy, expansion. What are the possibilities? So where does money come from? So if we think about point one, where we talked about we're already whole and complete, we're particles of the universe. So if we're already whole and complete, the universe is already whole and complete. And so when we get money, it isn't being created out of the blue, right? Our paychecks are coming from our employers. Where do our employers get the money? They get the money from their customers. Where do the customers get the money, right? Inheritance, paycheck. So everything is already there. It's a really interesting thing to think about, that money doesn't come from working. Money is already circulating, right? It's a currency. Like, think of a current in a river, or a currency in your electrical outlet, right? It's already there. It's moving. It's already there. We just need to call it in. And it usually doesn't come in with constricted energy, because that is expansive energy. The universe feels lack when you feel lack, and that stops the flow of moolah coming your way. So the other thing that can do is miss opportunities. If you're only looking at work as your supply, then you could be missing opportunities around you in other settings that could bring you additional money, or whether it's a new job, or whether it's a side hustle, or whether it's selling something on Facebook Marketplace, who knows. So we want to expand that awareness of supply. So I believe that the supply comes from, in my world, I call it spirit. It's a little different than the universe in my world, and you can read my book to learn why I think that's slightly different. But it comes from what I call the source or spirit. So whatever your belief system is, I'm not talking religion necessarily, but if you believe in a higher power or a greater energy at play, that's how the world is operating in this beautiful, there's no black hole. We aren't getting sucked out into space. So everything's contained. It's already here. And so we want to make sure that we are claiming those opportunities and understanding that the supply comes from the universe. It's already there. We just need to call it in. We need to give it a conduit to come to us. So that's a big limiting belief. So shifting that is becoming aware that source or spirit or universe, fill in your word. Okay, don't tune me out just because I'm using words you may not agree with. Fill in your word and know that that's the compensation. So when you get paid, your employer loses money, but they get money from customers, and the customer loses money, but they get money from their employers, right? So it's compensation. It's being compensated for. So I love that play on word. And so, don't intercept that flow of money by feeling constricted and feeling that energy of lack. We want to feel as expansive as we can. And the money course and the quiz is going to help you understand more limiting beliefs, but the money course will also help give you more tools as to how to correct things. So as I said before, if we stay attached to some of these old paradigms or these belief systems, I call it BS, belief systems, we stay attached to that, we are intercepting flow. If you're refusing to let someone buy you coffee, you're intercepting flow. You're intercepting law of attraction, man. Don't do that. If you are only serving, and not receiving, then you're interrupting flow. So we've got to think of that. We've got to reel back the lens. And when we're in that constriction mode, it's kind of hard to reel back the lens because we might be tight on a bill this month, or medical procedures coming up, and we don't know how we're going to pay for it. So it's understandable. We're humans. We're human beings, and it happens to all of us. I like to tell the folks I work with that I might be one big toe ahead of you in this path, right? I'm not a guru sitting at the top of the mountain oming with my legs crossed. I'm in the thick of it every day. And again, when I mentioned working with Janet, I was in that place. I wasn't feeling stuck so much. I just was feeling flat. And there wasn't a lot of excitement going on. And I could have panicked as a solopreneur and said, oh my gosh, but instead I went out and invested in myself. So that is an expansive way to be, to know that more is on its way, more is coming. And I mentioned earlier is that we want to understand that our natural state is growth. Our natural state is evolution. And when we say we feel stuck or stuck in a rut, it isn't that something outside of ourselves is causing us to be stuck. And it isn't even because you aren't clear, let's say, and think you're stuck. It isn't because of that either. It's usually because we are getting in the way of a natural next step of our growth. And growth means up-leveling. Growth means doing something that you may not have done before. Up-leveling or growth might mean changing careers or becoming an entrepreneur instead of a corporate professional, or vice versa. And so those big changes also ignite that fear factor. And again, we get to be aware of that. And as I mentioned before, the self-acceptance piece is huge. So it's natural to have those emotions. And if you can accept it and let yourself work its way through, then you can get on that other side. So what it really comes down to is being agile. How agile am I? Because flow, if we even think of a river, how it cuts its way through the land, it's agile. It isn't rooted. And so my question is always, how can I be more agile? All right, so that wraps up the three limiting beliefs. I'll go through them really quickly. The first one is looking outside of yourself for completion. The second one is not recognizing your role in your service, you being the conduit of your service. And the third is looking at work as the center point of your supply. So those are three of the biggest limiting beliefs that I see coming into play in intercepting value. If those of you who have joined us a little later on the call, then you can go back to the recording to listen to the teaching part. So I'm not going to leave you hanging like, gosh, Christine, okay, I can identify with some of the things. Where do I go from here? And I like to be a resource to people, which is why I'm so excited about the quiz. So the Money BS Meter is the quiz that I invite you to take. And you're going to see some questions asked on that quiz that's going to deep dive into your belief systems or the BS that might be there for you in terms of your money. And at the end of the quiz, you'll be given options of resources to support whatever your score was at the end of that quiz. So I definitely would love for you to try the quiz, because I did beta test it with friends and acquaintances, but I would love for you guys to take it as well. You're going to get an email at the end of this class tonight that has links to everything, so you can follow the link to the quiz and take that. But the other thing I did was I put my Show Me the Money course in as a self-study program. And that is something that I felt money is a personal thing. We don't always like talking about money in groups. And so sometimes going through it yourself can be really beneficial. And I put the Show Me the Money program into a self-study course, and that's also something you're going to get a link to if you would like to take that course. The quiz is free. The money course is $50. So you can invest in yourself with that money course. And the money course is going to go through each of those limiting beliefs from the quiz and teach you ways that you can move past and shift those limiting beliefs or those BSs, those belief systems that are getting in the way. Now, also, I don't have, and I'm so happy when I did away with my MailChimp and Constant Contact. I hated working with those. I just have a simple email that I send out every month. If you would like to join that email list, I usually send 1, maybe 2 emails a month most. So it's not a promotional email. So if you want to join me there, I have a monthly Kindred Spirit Hangout that I host as well. That's actually tomorrow night. And the email you get tonight will also have details for that Kindred Spirit Hangout tomorrow evening if you'd like to join us there. But if you would like to be added to the event email list, I just put my email address in the chat, which is Christine@ChristineClifton.com, and you can get notified of the events that I host. Now, those of you who invest in the Show Me the Money program, I'm actually going to throw in another bonus, but it probably won't be for another month or two, is that there is a second Show Me the Money course that I taught more recently that has updated information to the course that I'm offering through the self-study. So once I get that uploaded and ready to go, I'm going to give you 2 courses for the price of 1. And if you've purchased the Show Me the Money course, the first one, I will contact you when the second one is available. And it can be a nice refresher. I don't cover the exact same things in each class. And the Magical Money Manifestation Spreadsheet, that's a part of the Show Me the Money course, which is amazing. Spirit definitely led me to create that. It was also been upgraded in that second course. So you'll get all of that to self-study your way through. And then you also know where to find me. So if you take the course and you're like, gosh, I need help with this stuff, you could always reach out to me. So I'm going to sign off of the recording. Thanks everyone for coming today. I'm going to take Q&A here, so stay on if you would like to participate in the Q&A. And again, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming.